Hey everyone. Hello and welcome to the Cycle Starters podcast. This podcast is just for you if you're breaking intergenerational patterns and turning ancestral wounds into creative potential, embodied joy, and intergenerational abundance. I'm your host, Heather Rebecca Wilson, and I am passionate about ancestral healing and growth, as well as astrology and pleasure as transformative medicine. And I'm here to help elevate your consciousness and promote joy in your life. I truly believe everyone can become a cycle starter, reshaping their lineage and fostering growth and healing. Join me as I share enlightening insights and feature inspiring guests. We're here to support you in letting go of anything that's holding you back from your fullest expression in healing, growth, and transformation. If you're ready to be inspired on your journey of transformation and to create a life that aligns with your true self, then you are in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on our social media platforms. You can learn more about what I do and how I can support you along your ancestral healing journey on my website, heatherrebeccawilson.com. You can always connect with me, DM me any topics you want me to cover, share your takeaways, or send me a screenshot of your review, and I will send you a thank you gift. And if you're curious about receiving one-on-one mentorship, you can apply for a free breakthrough call using the link in the description. And here we go. Yay, we're here. Oh my goodness. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather. And in case you're new to my work, I'm an ancestral healing guide, a life path astrology reader, a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and trainer, and a trauma-informed leadership mentor. And so what I'm doing in this life is I am walking the path of dissolving intergenerational patterns on both sides of my multiracial family, as well as becoming a responsible steward of my ancestral wisdom and spiritual indigenous traditions. My maternal ancestors are from the Visayan Islands of Leyte, Samar, and Panay, in what is now known as the Philippines. And on my paternal side, I have ancestors from all over West Africa, but primarily Nigeria and Ghana. And then I also have paternal ancestors from the British Isles of Northern Europe. So one of the ways that I am dissolving intergenerational patterns and supporting other female-bodied cycle breakers is through my Astro Ancestral Healing Collective monthly membership. And that is for female-bodied cycle breakers who want to alchemize ancestral wounds into creative potential, embody joy, and shifts to higher consciousness using astrology and pleasure as medicine. So I've got that going on. And then I have my private practice. I do DEI consulting and training. And then I've got this podcast, the Cycle Starters podcast. So I am so psyched to welcome our special guest. And she's actually our September 2024 guest expert inside of the Astro Ancestral Healing Collective, the amazing, the incredible Julie Cielo. Welcome, dear sister.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather.
Oh my gosh, this is a blessing and an honor. So I'm going to read your bio, and I'm also going to share the title of your workshop, which you are going to be leading on September 17th, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. So Julie Cielo has spent all of her life striving to overcome her karma and live out her highest expression of her dharma, inspiring others to do the same. Eldest of 4 girls raised in rural Pennsylvania, Julie is a trained mortician and child medium. She is an autoimmune and PTSD survivor turned gut health expert, somatic and yoga therapist, evolutionary astrologer, and former founder and CEO of Firm Fatale, a wildly fermented zero-proof cocktail line, one of the very first adult non-alcoholic beverages to hit the US market and be nationally distributed. She has 16 years of experience leading international yoga retreats across Bali, Peru, and America. She owned Ebb and Flow Healing Art Studio for nearly 20 years and was the only non-MD invited as a panelist for a women's wellness conference for 3 consecutive years. Along with her background in digestive wellness and her unique psychic and intuitive gifts, Julie has 30 years of experience in both Vipassana and self-inquiry silent meditation. She specializes in somatic breath work, hypnosis, evolutionary astrology, and shadow work that she integrates into executive transformational life coaching. Rising from the ashes of chronic illness, family estrangement, patterns of abuse, and lifelong entrepreneurship, Julie helps people rewrite the relationship to their past to own the now. Gaslit by Western medicine, she took it upon herself to help women transform their lives inside out through healing the connection of heart, mind, and gut to use their voice that was silenced and own the power they gave away. Ooh, so powerful. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much. What an intro.
Well, listen, this is your life.
You can tell how old I am.
Oh my God. No way. No way. You are a youthful, energetic, sparkling presence and spirit. And the title of your workshop that you're going to be teaching, just so people know, is the Realign Vision Workshop, Why You Need a Why. So that's happening September 17th at 5:30 PST, 8:30 EST. It's happening on Zoom. If you want to come, it is open to all female-bodied cycle breakers across lineages and cultures. For non-members of the membership, it will be $30. And then for people who belong to the membership, they get access live and access to the recording, as well as the plethora of workshops that are already inside of our resource library. So that's the deal with that. But Julie, talk to me. Tell me, what was the inspiration behind this offering that you are so generously going to share with my community? But also, I just love to know more about how you got to this place.
Well, trying to figure out where to dive in. I think the best place to dive in, Heather, is to tell the listeners a little bit about where I came from. So to give an understanding as to why I think it's so important that we all have a why. So I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, as you mentioned. My grandfather was one of the Italians that fled Calabria, Italy during the Depression. So I'm second generation Italian American. And he took up a homestead in rural Pennsylvania after entering in through Ellis Island. And I was fortunate enough to be semi-raised by my grandparents. My mother is one child of 5 with borderline personality disorder. Her father had the same mental illness. Back then, people called it scary. They didn't know what mental illness was. So in rural Pennsylvania, we just called them scary people. So I was raised with quite a bit of violence in the home. Yet at the same time, I was taught how to do a lot of homesteading skills. I was never vaccinated. I was able to get religious exemption because we were living out amongst the Amish. It was a different type of upbringing that had quite a bit of polarity. A mother with borderline personality disorder with a lot of chaos. Yet here are these grandparents that really saved my life and taught me a lot of great life skills until I left home at 17 on a Greyhound bus to go to Mortuary college. I went to Mortuary college because my great-grandmother started speaking to me upon her death. So I knew I had some form of gift at age 8 that my grandmother confirmed and said that she had breathed this gift into me when she died. So I spent my childhood, when I wasn't caretaking for my younger siblings, in cemeteries waiting for dead people to come talk to me, and no one ever did. So I went to mortuary school on a mission to see what was on the other side of this. I knew that at least one dead person had talked to me, so maybe I could get more to communicate with me. And I went through mortuary college. And in my last semester of school, I had an outer body experience, a conscious state elevated above my body. And these visions that I had as a child of the pyramids started flooding my mind. Even though I wasn't in my body, I was still seeing these visions. And then the next vision I saw was a young girl. She looked Egyptian in the tombs of Egypt doing embalmings.
Mm.
And the message I received from what I think was my higher self was, you've done this before. This time you can choose the light, choose the light. And then I was back in my body. Here I am in my last semester of mortuary school, paying for it myself. I had many jobs in order to accomplish everything because my parents didn't give me even $5 when I left. So I was a worker bee from day one, and I knew I was off my path, but I didn't know what the next step was. And being the person that I am, I trust the flow of life that God would somehow show me the way. And sure enough, only a week or so later, my stepfather came to visit me, and he was chewing caffeine gum, yawned and popped his jaw out of alignment. So we were walking around the campus, and he was in a lot of jaw pain. And I said, oh, there's some massage therapists over there. Let's go see if they can help you. Because the local massage school was on campus for Parents Weekend. And they said, go across the street. The professor will help him there. So whenever she put the latex glove on her hand and went into his mouth, I commented and said, are you massaging his masseter? And she looked up at me and said, what's a young girl like you know anything about master? And I said, well, I'm in my last semester of mortuary college. And, that's how I know, because I've done autopsies on many a masseter. And she said, well, you'd make a great body worker. And as soon as she said that, I felt a physical tap on my shoulder, and there was nobody there. So I knew that I was getting my next intuitive hit. And I went into the financial aid office, asked how much it would cost, how long it would take me. I dropped out of mortuary college in my last semester and entered into what was a 20-year plus long career as a healer. And, I sort of put the vision that I saw of being this young slave girl in the back of my mind and just proceeded on with my life. Interestingly, I recently did 23andMe and discovered that I'm 6% Egyptian and 8% West African and 90% like Eastern European. But what I love most is that they told me I'm 47% more Neanderthal than the general population. And that kind of explains some things for me.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So, growing up with borderline parent, my mother was also bisexual. So I had lots of challenges as her eldest daughter, to say the least. And, when the school sent me home at 14 years old and said, your daughter has scoliosis, you need to take her to a doctor. I'd never been to a doctor except one time when I had a compound fracture when I flew off my dirt bike. So I wasn't really familiar with doctors. And they informed her that I had a pretty significant scoliosis and was considered crippled. And the doctor said, well, she'll need to have surgery right away. And this was the irony of this type of parenting, of mentally ill parent. She said, she looked at the doctors and said, no, she'll do yoga. And I remember they looked at her like she was just absolutely crazy. And we got in the minivan, and I said, so I'm going to do yoga? And she said, yeah, I'll drop you off at the public library when we get back. You can figure it out. And that was sort of how she parented, encouraging me to drink alcohol before school to stay warm at the bus stop, encouraging me to take off my baggy clothes so boys could see my body and my shape if I ever wanted to get married. There was a lot of um, reverse psychology in this borderline parenting skills. And I feel really resilient, Heather, that I knew so young. I remember being behind a dumpster with her and her asking me if she thought she should commit suicide. And I looked at her very calmly and said, I don't think it's a good idea. And that's really when my life coaching journey began.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember having that presence and that ability to hold space even for my mother at 6 years old and be able to separate my feelings and what her feelings were. And I really feel like life gave me a beautiful setup to do the work that I do now. And I'm continually humbled by the healing that is available to us.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. And I think at one point you had told me that you went to mortuary school, but I had forgotten.
Yeah.
So that is so freaking cool. And I
The
did
journey.
not, and I think you told me this too, but I had forgotten that you are a medium and that you inherited these gifts. They were passed on to you from a family member while they were on their deathbed, basically, if I'm understanding correctly.
Well, I actually wasn't there for her death, but I knew when
Okay.
her death had occurred because she immediately started speaking to me from, uh, hundreds of miles away.
That is so freaking awesome. I love that we're talking about psychic abilities and intuitive abilities because, at least in my case, and with a lot of clients that I work with, the enhancement or like the coming online of intuitive abilities and psychic abilities is the natural outgrowth of an ancestral healing journey. What I'm getting from you, though, is that like you really had access to these gifts or these abilities as a child. Like this didn't come online as an adult. Like you had these abilities as a child. So
My
that is
grandmother
amazing.
so it was my great grandmother that died. When I told my grandmother what she was telling me to tell her, she said, "Oh, she breathed it into you." And I said, "Well, what do you like? We're hundreds of miles away." But what she did was she confirmed, these are two staunch Catholic women. She confirmed that she knew her mother had some form of psychic gift. And it had jumped several generations before it ended up with me. And like I said, Heather, I was chasing it, wanting more dead people to talk to me. And it never happened until my last semester, around the same time period that I knew I was off track. I had 6 children laid out in the medical examiner's office that I was in charge of as the only female in my mortuary program. And there were 2 children that were, their deaths were horrific. I don't even want to comment on what had happened to these souls, but it was very tragic. And I was getting basically harassed by these young children at nighttime. Their spirits had clung to me and then followed me home, and then they speak in the same voice as when they died. So these were little children asking me why, and I felt harassed. I remember feeling like I have no idea how to make this go away. I just need sleep. And I had to learn pretty early on how to manage these gifts, because a lot of times people think that, oh, it's a gift that you can control, and that's not how it works unless you are very skilled and maybe had someone teach you. but nobody ever taught me. And then when I went to massage therapy school, and I had my own practice, things started happening in my practice because I would pray every day to be a conduit for the Lord's healing and be an instrument for peace. And I was gifted many opportunities over the 20-year career that I had as a healer. And I've witnessed ghosts in the room. I've witnessed uh, entities clinging on to people that no one ever taught me to do the things I did. I just instinctively started doing things and I was getting results.
Oh my gosh. This is so amazing. So what when you mentioned, feeling the shoulder or feeling the hand on your shoulder when you were redirected into body work, that's an example of clairsentience, right? That is clear feeling. So I have that as well. I have that ability as well. It's to be able to feel things that aren't there, right? You can't see. So that is super cool too. So would you say that you are claircognizant as well? Like clear knowing? Is that one of your
I
abilities?
I honestly think that's why I was successful in my first 2 careers, Heather. I think
Yeah.
that I have the gift of seeing things before they happen, and but I can't do it on demand. Like, people will ask me to do readings on them, like, "Just do me a reading right now," and I that's not how this works. Sometimes I mean, it could happen in the grocery store for all I know. What I do know is that I'm some form of conduit, meaning I'll just be minding my own business and someone will sit next to me, and I can't tell you how many times that person either just lost someone.
Mhm.
I feel like they're people, their spirits that they lost will somehow magnetize me towards that person to try to use me as a vocal piece, is what it feels like.
Right.
So I'm very open to being of service, as long as um, I've learned how to use boundaries with this work, meaning I have to have my own boundaries. I learned that with those children when they were not letting me sleep, and I'm like 19, 20 years old, not knowing how to make them go away so I could sleep. Um, I had to set some firm boundaries to make it stop and go away. And that was a really great way to teach me how to set energetic boundaries moving forward for my 20-year private practice.
Oh my gosh. That's huge. I think when we talk about boundary setting, and we talk about this a lot in the membership actually, because so many the I think the one thing we all have in common is working through codependency and enmeshment, and um and that's why I love the womb work, the pelvic work, the root work so much, because until you know the boundaries of your pelvic landscape, it is very hard to set boundaries in the 3D, which is, what I would refer to as the physical realm. But you also, right, as a person who receives information in nonlinear ways, somebody who's where the veil is very thin for you, you have to set boundaries in the unseen realms as well.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
so
What a learning.
yeah, I mean, and you got a very, like, young in life, still at 19 years old, you got like a very like strong lesson, and like, oh, I need to set boundaries with these people
Well,
who have crossed over, or maybe they're stuck,
I
right?
can't say as I was doing it very well in my personal life at that time period. And it has taken me all of the 49 years I've been alive to establish sovereignty, personal sovereignty after, being estranged from both my egg and sperm donors. Having, gone through marrying a man that became an alcoholic like my father, I mean, I think that a lot of people that are on their journey to healing might in the beginning think that it's some kind of linear trajectory. And I can tell you that I'm not healed completely. Um, I've done a lot of work for a long, long time, and I think that there's always room for growth. But what I'm discovering in my older age now is um, after having let go of so much, the importance of doing the things that you find of importance, Heather, joy and creative expression. And, like we can talk all we want about lots of dark subjects, but the real up leveling, in my opinion, of the healing is being able to receive joy and receive good in our lives. I mean, I think I've done pretty well considering I left on a Greyhound bus with $800 in my pocket and have been homeless many, not many times, but multiple times in my adulthood. I consider myself very fortunate to be sitting where I'm at today, but it's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of work to be able to hold good things and not watch them go through my fingertips. And I'm learning that lesson right now as we speak. And it's humbling. I've never felt more clear about the process that we're all going through. And I'm just deeply humbled by it, and excited for the next chapter.
Thank you for sharing so honestly and so vulnerably. And I want to circle back to something you said about, healing not being this linear thing. And I think that linearity, the concept of hierarchy, those are 3D frequencies, and my feeling is humanity is transitioning out of the 3D right now. And
Yes.
I'm talking about those 3D frequencies, those colonial frequencies of like patriarchy, the linearity, the hierarchy, the supremacist culture. And we're moving into the 5D. And for me, like some people call that the age of Aquarius. My pre-colonial maternal ancestors would refer to the 5D as Pakiki Pagkapwa, which is very difficult to spell and difficult to say. But basically, they were animists. They practiced animism, which meant that they believed everything was alive and everything has consciousness. So my feeling is humanity is making that transition right now up to a place where we're all connected, right? Instead of looking across the room at that person who's not like you and being, ew, you're gross. That's not me. That's separation consciousness. And the 5D, it's like, oh my God, you are me. You
Right.
are a message from spirit letting me know that there's something coming up to be healed. And again, it's not a linear journey. It's a cyclical spiraling journey. And you find yourself, and I can speak to this because this has been my experience as well. You come back to kind of like the same things, but just at a different level of consciousness.
Amen.
So, yeah, just thank you for sharing that. And
Well,
because I do think a lot of people are intimidated by this work. And I also think that not everybody's meant to do this work in this particular lifetime.
I agree. It reminds me of the stages of awakening. Have you ever heard about the different stages of awakening?
Tell me more.
So the first stage is one that I'm familiar with. My parents are certainly very much in this stage right now, hence the reason why I'm estranged from them. But the first stage is life is happening to me.
Right.
I'm a victim to life,
Yeah.
and I don't have any control over it because it's just happening to me. And the second stage is life is happening for me. It's whenever we make that slight shift from blaming everyone around us for everything to, well, maybe actually there's a power behind all of this that life is happening for me. The final stage is life is happening through me.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the point of our awakening, that we realize that when we harm someone else, we harm ourselves, and that interconnectedness, that oneness consciousness, we we can see that when we're triggered by somebody else, whether it be good or bad. Sometimes I'll be so inspired by a woman like you, for instance, that I'm taken back and just like, oh, my heart feels so full from just being in your energy. That is a good indication that, that we're in that final stage of awakening, that we're able to see ourselves, that the good parts of ourselves and someone else and vice versa. But we get opportunities whenever we're really annoyed by someone too.
Yeah.
If someone's just driving me crazy, I'm like, wow, what part of me is like that? And how can I take full responsibility? That's one thing that I'm very grateful. The path that I've been put on has not been an easy path. I'm a like I told you before we started, a quadruple Gemini, but I've been estranged from my whole family since 2017. Whenever I confronted my mother for an embezzlement that she had covered up for 25 years.
Oh my
And
goodness.
she had an opportunity to just say, yeah, I did it. And her parents are gone. She robbed her own parents.
Mm.
So my role as the eldest daughter, confronting a parent that's mental illness, has been a rough path. I mean, I'm not a victim. I see life happening through me. Point that I'm trying to make is that um, we move in and out of these stages. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm so evolved that I don't have moments where I feel like the victim of my life, because I do. And that I'll find myself 1 minute later realizing that the bigger picture of everything and my role in it. So these stages, I just want women to know that it's okay if you move in and out of them, as long as you're aware, right?
Yes, I 100% agree. There are so many ups and downs on a healing journey, and um, it can be really messy, and that's just what it is. And I really appreciate you again sharing so honestly and vulnerably about your healing journey. And you know, you said something about one of the biggest challenges on your healing journey being uh this receptivity to
Yeah,
embodying this receptivity to love and all the good things.
all the good
Can
things.
you speak more about that as to why that has been such a challenge for you?
Yes.
Because you are not alone. I
Yes.
mean, I've dealt with that to some extent, but I think you can really speak to this. So, can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Well, I'm still unpacking it, Heather. I'll share my most recent sort of unveiling, getting me closer and closer to the ultimate merging with divine consciousness. But I recently realized that the parts of me that I don't like are not those are not the parts of me that are in shadow. I realized was the part of me that's in shadow is the part that I would love to share with the world. It's the most brilliant and magnificent part of myself that I would love to share my voice and just, be out there and bold and say whatever I want to say and just be fully expressed, and I'm recognizing that it's not the parts of me that I don't want people to see that I'm hiding. I'm actually unconsciously hiding the most beautiful part of me that's in shadow. And knowing that has brought me a, a bit of confusion, but also like, wow, this journey that we're on is so magical that and ironic and just like, how is it possible that we would hide the parts of ourselves that are the most beautiful and put the ugliest part of ourselves at the front that we actually don't want anyone to see, but this is all happening unconsciously. It's amazing. And so I share that just because that's kind of what I'm gnawing on right now and working through, and through that discovery, learning how to be a great shadow work practitioner for other people to help them find their way through, um, dragging their shadows into the light to be their highest and best self. That's why I'm doing the workshop on the why we need a why, is because I believe that we all have something called spanda in our spiritual heart. And this spanda is what is the spark of life that we all started off as. And that spanda continues to live there in our spiritual heart. And it feeds off of our personal creativity. And, you're as unique as your thumbprint, Heather. There's nobody that will ever be like Heather Rebecca Wilson. Heather Rebecca Wilson is a unique expression that will never be able to be duplicated. And that knowing what makes you so unique and special, it's certainly not like we're here to build up our ego, but we are here to express ourselves uniquely. And I truly, that has been my guiding light for as long as I can remember, in the darkest of moments, knowing that this spanda, this creative force, lives inside of me and wants to express itself through me as me. And that the more I turn myself towards the light repeatedly, moment by moment by moment, the more I do that, then I know that I'm moving in the direction of what divine wants from me. Not to be subservient to the energy, but to be a part of its co-creative process. We're eternal light beings having this temporary experience, and we can get really lost in it, especially if we come from pain. It can be very difficult to understand what is the point of all of this. So that leads me back to why we need a why. And just, tapping into that spanda and saying, what am I passionate about today? What's making me want to come alive? Is it the fact that I have all of these ingredients to make my own tempeh? Is it my incredibly adorable dog? Like, this is why we're here. We're here. I'm looking at your paintings behind you and so inspired by your creative force, who you are, Heather, that it makes me want to tend to my garden, my inner garden. Looking at your beautiful rose garden makes me want to tend to mine. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about helping people discover their why, is because it's not that, we're certainly not here to compare with one another, but we are here to inspire ourselves and each other by just being our most expressed self. So during the workshop, a person gets to get really clear and real about what's not working in their life, what they're not happy with. Because, we all have things that we're not satisfied with yet. I'll start my diet tomorrow. Or, I'll get out of that toxic relationship whenever something better comes along. Or, what I'm talking about is how we
Mhm.
hold ourselves back a lot in life.
Yes.
And it's because we don't take the time to prioritize ourselves to say, what makes you come alive? What is not working? So that's the first thing I do whenever I take on a client or I do a workshop is let's talk about what's not working. And some people are like, "Well, why are we focusing on the negative? I don't understand what we're doing here." And it's because we have to know what is out of alignment before we can find alignment. And, that sometimes means we need to get real about what's not working. So, in doing so, it shines the light of awareness on what would I love. So we use the shadow or the negative to actually pull out the positive or the light out of someone. And then that's what the whole workshop is about is like, okay, now that you know what you would absolutely love, what's in the way from you having it? And I can tell you I'll be super vulnerable here and just admit that I know what's in my way right now. It's me having the most confident, courageous version of myself out in the world. Because then I have to be that person. I have, like that means that I have to accept that about myself. And you being raised with a narcissist, even though it's been many years and much healing in this spiral that we talked about, these shadows, the negative core beliefs that are held in our subconscious, and even some of it in the nervous system from being in terror every day of my life growing up. Um, those those parts of us that aren't us need to be worked through before someone can really step most fully into receiving their best life. And some people are born with a silver spoon. We know these people. We live in Los Angeles. And good for them that they came in with that kind of karma. It's not my journey to figure out what they're doing, but it is my responsibility to um, deal with my own issues. And I think if that was the world that we lived in, that we wouldn't have war and hate and racism and patriarchy and all the things that um, we see happening in the world that a lot of us are really concerned about. We wouldn't be in that world if we all did our own self responsibility work of reflecting on how can I take responsibility for my part, because I know I'm connected with the next person and so on. If we lived in that world, which I really hope we are moving into the 5D age of Aquarius, where collectively everyone's starting to wake up to this idea that what harms me harms you and vice versa.
Oh my gosh. I love everything that you're sharing, and what's coming through so strongly, which you've mentioned several times, is this concept of deep self-responsibility.
Yeah.
And I really love and respect that about you. You are living life. You are responding, to your environment, to the people that come into your life, the situations. Like, you're just so actively engaged in life. I love that. I love that about you. Your life force energy is so strong. And I think that also is a reflection of your quadruple Gemini energy signature. And I can relate somewhat because I am a Gemini rising and my Jupiter is in Gemini. And it's so funny, before I realized that I was Gemini rising, I had a bias against Geminis because the stereotypical, Gemini qualities, they kind of veer towards the negative when it comes to like pop astrology, which is
Right.
very much focused on sun signs. And
Right.
Geminis get a bad rap. Like they're two-faced, they're scatterbrained, they're
Flaky.
flaky, right? And, they're airheads,
Yeah.
whatever. And then I realized, oh shit, I'm a Gemini rising. Like, oh my God. And so I was forced to confront those qualities within myself, but then also expand and begin to embrace, these parts of myself that I really wasn't giving myself credit for, I wasn't recognizing. So the high expression of Gemini is like creative thinker, flexible learner. I
Curious.
mean, we are so curious, right? And that's your curiosity about life and people and just growing and looking inside and being in conversation. Like that is so Gemini, and we're so much fun. We love to talk, we love to learn about people, we just
Yes.
love to learn.
Yes.
And we're just, yeah, just on top of, I mean, I can definitely overconsume,
Fiddle.
uh, you know, social media. I can go down YouTube rabbit holes
Ah.
better than most people, because I'm like, ooh, I want to learn about this, right? And then it's like 12 hours later, it's like, okay, I've watched like 10,000 videos on this one topic. But that's just how my mind works. And we are quick learners, we are great communicators, and I'm really excited that you are taking this on, this like the full embodiment of this quadruple Gemini signature, because
Well,
Geminis are awesome.
being a evolutionary astrologer, we focus on the nodes.
Right, right.
And my north node is in Sagittarius.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, so I think that having this setup of the north node in Sagittarius certainly has me, continuing to reach for expansion. So I feel really blessed that way, but I'm also very aware of the karma that I have brought in. And years ago, I had a Vedic astrologer talk about how my entire chart was covered in the karma of my mother. And I remember thinking,
Mm,
oh God, it certainly feels that way. Um, and, you know, I I think that no matter what the hand is that we're dealt, it's how we perceive it. So, being a quadruple Gemini, I think that a big part of my karmic work is
yeah.
shifting perceptions, and also being an inspiration to help other people shift their perceptions, because whatever we believe is true.
Right.
But if we can believe a truth that serves our higher purpose and our interconnectedness with all beings, that that is, I think, a beautiful way to transform karma into dharma. And that's what I strive to do.
Well, your tenacity, your courage, your passion for life, it really comes through so strongly. And I think, it's divinely ordained that you and I connected
I feel so
in
great.
Venice on Tongva Chumash territory, also known as Los Angeles, California. So, um, so Julie's workshop is again happening on September 17th at 5:30 PST, 8:30 EST on Zoom.
It's
It
gonna
is
be so
$30.
fun.
I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. It's $30 for non-members of the Ancestral Healing Collective. If you are a member, this is included in the membership, whether you are able to attend live or you want to watch the recording. It will be available within 48
I
hours and
highly
you'll get,
recommend that
yeah,
they're there live though, Heather, because it is interactive, which
yeah,
means
definitely. Make it live
if
if
you're
you
not
can.
there, you're really gonna miss out because watching the other people do the interacting experience will be cool, but to be in it and practice yourself in the interacting experience is just so much more fun, and they get to play with their sponda.
Yes, and that's the first time I have heard that term. That is, you're gonna have to send me the definition so that I can add it to the notes for the podcast.
It's a
But
yogic term.
okay, it's the first time I've heard it. I'm fascinated. So to wrap up, this is the Cycle Starters podcast. We've talked a lot about your family background, where you came from, and some of the things that you've had to overcome to get to where you are. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. And this is something that you are in the middle of and investigating. But
Continually.
yeah, continually investigating. My question for you is, what are the cycles that you are starting now in your lineages? So what would you share with our viewers and our listeners about that?
Yeah, when you asked me this question, I immediately thought, well, I started this a long time ago, and breaking out of addiction. Um, you know, Initially I did Buddhist meditation for the first 25 years of my meditation career. What I discovered was that Vipassana meditation was also a great tactic for me to spiritually bypass as a
Uh-huh.
quadruple Gemini.
Mhm.
So when I found self inquiry meditation 4 years ago and actually sat with my spiritual heart and realized the immense amount of shame that was covering my heart and keeping me back from realizing the spanda, that was the beginning of a new era for me to start receiving good, actively, very consciously receiving good in my life from others. And a big part of that has been overcoming hypervigilance from being severely traumatized as a child. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that are listening can relate to being on just constant alert. Who's going to mess with me now? Who's going to hurt me now? And just
Right.
waiting for someone to come hurt me, and anticipating it and assuming it unconsciously. So I am verbalizing this to you and all of the listeners right now, Heather, to hold me accountable to being a conduit for receiving good, abundance, joy, all of the good things that we all deserve. We all deserve this, not the people that were raised with a silver spoon or the people that, like everyone deserves to live a life of joy and be creatively expressed, receive
Mm,
abundance. So I'm mentioning this for myself, as something that I'm starting and calling in as a means to be held responsible in community by the people that are hearing my voice.
that's beautiful. And I'm right there with you. And, I too am on that journey of, that's actually my word of the year, is receiving. right? Like let it in. And
Yes.
it can be uncomfortable. It
Yeah.
can be really uncomfortable. It's like, this is not my comfort zone at all, but I guess this is my word of the year. So here we go.
Yes.
So we can hold each other accountable. And
Yes.
I'm just so blessed to know you.
Oh,
I am
likewise.
so excited for this live experience that you're going to be leading on September 17th.
I just
If
realized that
you,
that is the next full moon. September
yes, you know what,
17th is the
actually,
next full moon.
we talked about this.
Yes.
We actually, when we scheduled it, so
Yes.
it's going to be extra potent, right? The veil will be very thin, and knowing that you are this channel for messages from spirit, I cannot wait for this experience. It's going to
Yes.
be fabulous. So
Absolutely.
I'm sending you so much love,
Thank you.
all the
I
hugs.
received
We're going to
it.
talk again soon. And if you are interested in joining the Ancestral Healing Collective, you can just go to heatherrebeccawilson.com. Julie's workshop is happening September 17th at 5:30 p.m. PST, 8:30 p.m. 8 EST, excuse me, and it is $30 for non-members.
Amazing.
And after we do the live experience, it will live in the resource library for those who want to revisit it. You know, you may go through it once and
Oh,
have an amazing experience, and then you want to rewatch. So that's there for members
this is
only.
something that I have done, I tell you, hundreds of times, Heather. And we all need to be realigned at times.
Oh yes, yes. I mean, it's hello when you are sensitive to energy, right? Energy hygiene, energy management is so important. And I just also want to throw in that Julie is an amazing breathwork facilitator.
Oh,
I went to one of her live events, I don't know,
we
2
can
months
do, we'll
ago,
do
and
a
it
little
was
bit, we'll do
incredible.
a little bit of breath work at the beginning of the workshop.
Yay!
Yeah, it'll be great.
Yay. All right. Well, Julie, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, enlightening conversation.
Ditto.
Thank you for sharing your story, and I cannot wait for the workshop.
Me too.
So, everybody, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Cycle Starters podcast.
Thank you,
All right.
Heather.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.